Going to go into wrap up mode now, and I had a discussion. I had some neat modeling frontier discussion here. I'm so excited about some things I'd love to talk with you about. Using these ubiquitous data collection systems that we've helped contribute, and using them to inform models to help fill in this sort of detailed articulation of theories that we often capture in models, using particle filtering as a more advanced filtering technique beyond our earlier work with Kalman filtering to sort of do auto-correcting models, and when new data come in, they're automatically sort of resynced with what that data suggests about the underlying context, taking into account model fallibility and data fallibility. Automatically sort of updated to represent the current situation as best it's understood. And in some sense, this is leading to self-correcting models. Models in the same way that you would never want, you may know your way home from here with great clarity, you have a very good mental model, but you'd never drive it with your eyes closed. Even the best mental model, we always seek to cross-check it with visual input if we're trying to navigate. So it is with models. I believe that, an open loop model, which navigates, as it were, with its eyes closed, is as crazy as trying to get home from here with your eyes closed. There's all these factors we know we can't anticipate in the real world. Cars coming with the vagaries of the timing of stoplights, street repairs and cracks in the sidewalk we didn't remember. And we're going to end up in a world of trouble if we try to walk home with our eyes closed. And so it is with a lot of models. Even the best model, the richest model, is eventually going to diverge from the world inevitably. There's inevitably going to be a lot of stochastics that we can't anticipate upfront how they're going to come out. And if we have a way of continually integrating new data with the model to sort of keep it consistent, keep it honest, keep it jived with what's actually best observed, we can come up with the best of both worlds. We can come up with a model that's grounded in the present realities, that doesn't really gather dust after it's been created as it diverges from the world, but is instead constantly regrounded, and that can be used to look forward for modest periods of time with considerable accuracy. So I'm very excited about these techniques, and I have example models in AnyLogic which apply them to models to quite some good effect. We have a paper coming out on this in WinterSim also that some of you may see later in the year. Very, very interested in applications of MCMC and sequential Monte Carlo methods together with models, and also improved agent-based modeling languages. What we're seeing now in AnyLogic is a world apart from what you would have seen 10 years ago when you started agent-based modeling. If you had started agent-based modeling then, but I believe that down the road there's much greater gains. And we're experimenting with some languages that we think are much crisper and clearer for expressing agent-based models, and trying to nudge AnyLogic in the direction of employing these things within their context as experimental languages. We believe that the AnyLogic framework offers a great deal of advances over many other frameworks, but has a lot of ways in which it can be improved for clarity, for ease of use, and for transparency of use by those without computational background. And we're trying to build on our understanding of different languages and introduce new techniques in that area. In any case, and this other thing I feel is really great. I know Rachel is working on some aspects of this. Incredibly excited about applications of choice theory together with agent-based models, so that we can have models where agents have actual agency. They can actually choose different things in different choice environments. When presented with interventions where we simply don't program them with presupposed assumptions about how it will change behavior, but where instead that change of behavior is emergent, based on their preferences, based on their choice environment, based on the incentives that are offered them. We need agent-based models with agency, and increasingly we turn to them. The other thing that I will say is this, I'm going to then get into full wrap-up mode. One point of oversight I realized that I had fallen into, in which my colleague Jeff McDonald, as well as some discussions with Priesri's group in this past year of my course, made me realize this. It's awful easy for agent-based modelers to fall into an atomistic framework, atomistic mindset, where the focus of the model is the agent, say the agent who suffers the health condition. So if we're working in health, we have agents, and the agents undergo various progressions and health conditions, and it's very natural for you to focus the model on those agents. So you have a model of dementia, and you focus on the agents with dementia and its progression. You have a model of pregnancy and postpartum depression, and you focus your model on the women who are pregnant, deliver, and undergo postpartum depression. And that's a powerful framework. That's what we do very commonly in a lot of models. But I think in some ways it's missing the boat in that it is ruling out a lot of the most powerful interventions, which are capable of being represented in an agent-based fashion. And specifically, what it's ruling out is recognition of the key role that certain relationships play within it. And so if we define our scope of the model to be those women who are pregnant or delivered, or if we define the scope of our model to be those people with dementia, we have put outside of our scope some of the key players that could be most instrumental in changing and improving the health of those people, of those key index people. And in the case of postpartum depression, there's a long discussion with Priesri's group about the role that the support networks play for a new mother. So mothers, mothers-in-law, and friends and others who often play key roles in that early period of where the mother is dealing with an infant, and in the earliest years of life for the child. And those key players, it's often the relationships with those players, the relationships with the mother, the relationship with the mother-in-law, that can play such a key role in shaping the sort of the risk of depression. So it is with dementia, that if we're interested in lowered cost, if we're interested in improved quality of life, if we're interested in enhanced well-being and length of life even for those with dementia, often the key factors are not about the person with dementia alone. It's about the relationships. It's about the relationships between that person and their caregivers. And if you can strengthen that relationship, if you can enhance it so that it's less fragile, then that will often mean that the person can stay at home for much longer, sometimes with a much better quality of life, sometimes with improved health status, because the person looking after them is more vigilant to things, and because of less risk of other types of mental distress on their part, and then also a more distant time to institutionalization. And if you can enhance the relationships in the institution, you can further enhance those various same factors and extend the length, the quality of life, and lower the cost. So what I'm saying is, folks, it's important that you not think of agent-based modeling as all about just the agents. It's about agents and relationships often. And I would almost argue it's worth thinking about agent relationship modeling, where it's actually the dynamics of the relationships between A and B that's almost as important as the dynamics of the person. And so when you're building your models, try to make sure that you don't like the bed of Procrustes, chop off Procrustes' legs because they don't fit into the agent framework. Remember that the relationships there between agents sometimes have their own dynamics, and capturing those relationships may be the key for capturing the efficacy of some of the most important interventions. So we're working on some lines of work where we can explore more fully sort of representing these relationships that are so important to the health of individuals. Okay, I had offered to mention a few things about agent-based model platform strengths and weaknesses. These are a bunch that we've used and that our work has touched on. And I had a set of sort of trade-offs as I see it between them. I would say each of them has strengths to recommend it. ModGen being very, very, very fast compared to many other conditions. NetLogo having a very nice interface for first-time users. Lots of nice little small models, good accompanying book. Repast, very, very widely used. Some multiple languages supported. It does have an R exporter interface. There's a high-performance version available. It has many features. But there's also some real disadvantages. With Repast, your program can easily turn into a hairball. It can easily turn into a big software engineering exercise. And a lot of people are just not ready for that. And frankly, speaking as a modeler and a software engineer, when I want to think as a modeler, I don't want to have variable declarations and the vagaries of for loops and syntax getting in the way of my seeing the model. And this is one of the reasons I like AndyLogic's visual representation so much, because I can look at the what of the model without having to see all the details and the vagaries of the how. But in Repast, you're basically dealing typically with large volumes of Java code. Now, in its later versions, it has introduced some support for state charts, and that's good. They've also introduced some visual depiction of algorithms, but I have the distinct sense they're much earlier in that continuum than is AndyLogic. NetLogo, the language is quite awkward. There's built-in constraints that really limit flexibility. The biggest issue that many projects run into is the difficulty in scaling the population. If you start running up into low tens of thousands of agents, it can really max out for versions of NetLogo that I've heard people talking about. And larger models can become very, very complex. ModGen, it requires some programming sophistication. There's poor support for parallelization, and model specification is somewhat confusing. But it does have some very nice declarative output, and has this very nice bio browser to browse history of agents. It's C++ based, which will trip some people up. AndyLogic, I think it's got lots of advantages to recommend it. I've listed many of them there. I had answered a question about it early on in this boot camp about what recommends it. It does have some serious downsides. Cost for academic audiences is particularly a serious concern. It is a concern which is shared by a lot of people, and it is a concern that AndyLogic listens to. There is some willingness to talk and negotiate on that front. Some familiarity with Java is required, and model specification is hard to inspect all in one place. Okay, those are some comments on some features. I have further comments on AndyLogic's strengths and weaknesses. And another one, I'd say, proprietary nature of the platform can be challenging. Any questions about that before I give my very final sort of little couple slides here? Okay. So books for people. There's a bunch of books that I would recommend as relevant to this course. The Railspec and Grimm book is not on AndyLogic, but it's quite good. Computational social science. I'm not sure how it got knocked off here. I thought I put it on here, but the big book of simulation modeling is on AndyLogic and has lots to recommend it, including a Java reference or Java chapter. On the network side and system dynamics side, there's the perspective for agent-based modeling, as articulated by Josh Epstein, I think is particularly interesting. Volker Grimm's work published in the Pages of Science is also worth looking at and quite interesting. Conferences of relevance. Well, agent-based models are presented at a lot of different conferences, and there are some specific agent-based modeling conferences. I would recommend, for those interested in health, some of those listed here. SBP has quite a few things now on agent-based modeling, some quite good quality material. WinterSim also has good coverage for microsim. and it's sometimes for agent-based modeling and microsimulation, and it's also co-located with the AnyLogic users group meeting, or AnyLogic conference. This year, that's in Informs. Microsimulation International. This is a microsimulation conference, particularly agent-based modeling historically comes from a confluence of traditions, the microsimulation side from economics, the agent-based modeling side more from computer science. And they're kind of merging now, pretty functionally very similar but different modeling traditions, different approaches of how they represent things. Microsimulation being much more statistically sort of centered, whereas ABM being somewhat more algorithmically centered. So Microsimulation International, and the SD conference has some decent things. IHI also has some agent-based models that you might see. So these are some conferences. I'm sure there are others. Maybe there are some that are getting presented now in MDM. I'm not sure, or other venues. Community support, folks. I would recommend to anyone that you join our ABM Bootcamp Google group. We have this Google group now founded. I provided you the link as part of your materials, and you can go in there and you can ask questions of TAs like Priesri and others to sort of for advice. You could share notes with people, share models. It's a forum online. We have password protected it not because we don't want the greater population join in, but because when you have purely open forums, it's very easy for people to post malware there. Say, look at this great model, and then you open it, and it prevents your computer from being able to boot, and prevents you from being able to present, something like that. So it could be a bad thing that happens when people post things to open groups. So it is password protected, but we'd be glad to let you in there. AnyLogic users group on LinkedIn has some decent stuff on it. LinkedIn, to me, it's sometimes a little bit of a commercially sort of focused forum, but there's some good stuff on there, and I haven't had really bad problems. I announce our boot camps there, other events. The Health Regions of the Systems Wiki. I don't think many people here know Jeff McDonald. I think two people know, Priesri and Kristen. Jeff McDonald has contributed a huge amount to Systems Wiki, and they actually have, I should have put it on my list, they actually have Insight Maker, which now supports some agent-based modeling, Scott Fort Monroe's work. I'd recommend it a lot. Finding participants, finding partners, networks among class participants, the Bootcamp Wiki, the LinkedIn groups, talking with me, conferences. If you want to collaborate with others, I can help sort of try to match you up with other people of requisite skill sets that you're looking for. Further training. Well, I would recommend our event, which is going to be happening in about a week and a half's time. I'm going to be standing up in front of a new group, saying welcome to the Bootcamp and Incubator. And that time I'll be solidly on the soil of the true north. You may think it's snow of the true north. No, we have soil at this time of year. Thanks very much. And fertile soil in the breadbasket of Canada, I might add. So this is a boot camp, and I would highlight this. This is an incubator. You will hear much material in common with this. There's no question. But more to the point, a third to a half of each day is spent building models. Building models in the womb of having TAs around, having me around to help advise them. When you get stuck, you've got us to grab there. And some of the models that come out of that boot camp by the end of the week are just striking. I was very, very impressed. We try to have people go home with working models, and not only that, quite a few of them go home with quite nice little forays in different directions models. One guy last year built 2 working models on sort of different related factors. So the incubator side really distinguishes it. It's 6 days instead of 5. we have a full day Saturday just for model building, plus a third to a half of every day. And lots of TAs and and often they'll partner directly with groups, so they'll sit with you for long periods of time, helping you as you build your model. So it's a different flavor, but some similar material, and for better or worse, the same old instructor. Kind of goes with the territory, I guess. Okay, I also teach a U of S class. I teach two U of S courses, one that's introductory, one that's intermediate. We're rolling out this intermediate one this year, project-oriented. Students come to it. I have remote students who have joined from the States and around Canada for my classes. So if you're interested in doing project work, and classes both have projects for the grad work. Finally, I'm going to be teaching a class with Ross Hammond, Liz Bruch, at University of Michigan, the FE extension. It appears, it's not 100% finalized, but that's my understanding, starting next year. And that will be also another interesting episode. We have yet to work out the details, but that's going to involve the three of us, and it may involve some interesting content. For those who don't know Ross Hammond, he may be the most famous name in agent-based modeling and health in the States. And Liz Bruch is a dynamite sociologist who works in a lot of areas related to health, including neighborhood selection, and especially in choice modeling. So I'd strongly recommend that. So that's all I have time for the main session. It's been my enormous privilege, pleasure, honor to be able to work with you this week. I wish I could cover more material. You'll find lots of stuff of those resources online, those video links that I provided in the background materials, where I think there's now 1,200 videos or something like that. Probably more than you ever want to hear of me talking. But you'll find all sorts of stuff, tutorials about particular models, many topics not covered here, discussions of trade-offs between modeling types, all sorts, talks for me at various occasions about big data and modeling, all sorts of stuff like that. So if you folks are interested, feel free to go there. And I would love to see you at WinterSim this year, where I'll be, and at other occasions. It's really been such a fun week, and I hope to have a chance for further contact and work. Thanks very much.